What is up, guys? It is Styx here, and today I'm going to be going over another build, this one being what might be the best Warlock build available currently, especially the best non-melee Warlock build. And I wanted to take a quick moment to tell you guys that I am now an advanced.gg ambassador, meaning that I have a referral link and I have a discount code to share with you guys, StyxHere10, if you want 10% off on anything you could order there. I personally use the powdered energy as a pre-workout supplement, sort of, for like the extra caffeine mixed with my other stuff. So if you like anything like that, or if you just need an energy drink, there it is. And if you want to support in other ways, then I have a Patreon as well in the description. This is a build that utilizes the newly buffed and now completely fixed with the buff put into action Starfire protocol. For those unaware, they essentially, the new grenade changes and all of that increased the damage of grenades, obviously, which makes Starfire already quite good. Then they also made it so that empowered weapon final blows also applies when you are radiant, and they increased the on-hit amount of energy you get, but they decreased the on-kill. This averages out to be like a slight buff or like a side grade, but is extremely good in the content where Starfire protocol may struggle anyway, because it's on hit, not on kill. So whenever you're in those high-end activities, that will come through very nicely for you. We will be making use of this in combination with one of two or maybe three Yurtide Apex rolls. One I'm really liking is a heal clip and either Chaos Reshaped or Incandescent. Incandescent is on kill, so I usually lean towards Chaos Reshaped. And then I did put out some slight misinformation, not really misinformation, but I did not fully understand how significant text balance stock was. If you just hip fire a little bit here and there, this makes your reload extremely fast. So even if you don't have a reload masterwork, even if you don't have something like an increased reload magazine, text balance stock is definitely what I would go for on this weapon, and then just hip fire every so often, or hip fire for anything close to you. Another option I would definitely go with is something with Burning Ambition. I like this roll of Attrition Orbs and Burning Ambition, the only downside being, of course, because I don't have a heal clip Burning Ambition roll, I don't have as much sustainability from it, but the Attrition Orbs is really nice, and if you do want a little bit of healing from it, you can run something like Recuperation on your legs, which makes it so that picking up an orb causes you to regenerate. Another option that's a blend of the two a little bit is Demolitionist, so that it reloads on its own while also improving the grenade energy gains you get from every kill, but this is only on kills. Now, as far as the build overall, we're going to go into the subclass. This will be Song of Flame as our super. It is the strongest Warlock super in the game definitively, and some argue it would be the strongest period. Who knows? Depends on the situation, I would say. I would recommend Phoenix Dive for any solo activity or any activity where you need a lot of movement, and then Healing Rift if you're able to kind of sit in one spot with your team and you need to put those heals on them so that they can benefit from the consistent healing. Incinerator Snap is better in general for PvE because of the amount of Scorch application you get from it. It's very nice to use. Fusion Grenade is absolutely mandatory because we're using Starfire Protocol. If you don't use Fusion Grenade, it's not going to work. Touch of Flame makes our Fusion Grenades better. Specifically, it makes it explode twice, which is potentially double the damage, double the Scorch, double the ignition. Hellion is another way to get our Scorch online because it continuously scorches any targets that are hit by the solar buddy that you get. And then if you want something else, I know some people might run it with Heat Rises and then they'll eat one of the grenades and throw another. This will cure allies around them and then will also give extra melee energy and stuff like that. I would say that this is not as good as Hellion for pure damage, but that is up to the individual, of course. For fragments, I'm going to go with a mix of things that are going to maintain the radiant and restoration effects we want on ourselves and things that generate Scorch. I'm going to take Ember of Mercy so that whenever we pick up a fire sprite, we will grant ourselves restoration. In addition, whenever we revive an ally, ourselves and all nearby allies will also gain restoration. That is a minor effect compared to the Fire Sprite effect, especially with the current seasonal artifact, but it'll come in handy. Ember of Solace will make it so that Radiant and Restoration effects applied to us will have an increased duration. Ember of Empyrean will make it so that any solar weapon or ability final blows will extend the duration of our Restoration and Radiant effects. And Ember of Char will make it so that our solar ignitions will spread Scorch to affected targets. Very nice. It also gives a nice +10 grenade, which makes our stat requirement a little bit more lax. For the seasonal mods, I'm going to state the mandatory ones. Fever and Chill, absolutely mandatory. It's the way we're going to get Radiant. If we did not have this, we would probably want to run the Ember of Dawn as one of our fragments, but because this exists, we don't really need to do that. Refresh Threads, also necessary. Picking up a Fire Sprite with this will give us energy to our least charged ability. We combine this with Elemental Coalescence, which causes defeated targets to create an elemental pickup that matches our super, which is Fire Sprites. Cauterized Darkness will make it so that anything that is hit with a stasis or strand debuff will take extra damage from all solar sources. Now this is only on non-boss combatants, but it's still very nice to have. Elemental Daze allows you to create more solar explosions by getting stuns with your solar weapons, or strand explosions if you get a stun with a strand weapon. Radiant Shrapnel, dealing sustained weapon damage while radiant, so pretty much just dealing sustained damage period, will make it so that it releases solar projectiles that deal damage and scorch on impact. Very, very nice. Shield Crush, while you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, your melee will recharge faster and deal increased damage. That's not the important bit for us, but you might get it from your allies. And then while you are Amplified or Radiant, our grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. All of this put together will make our grenades extremely potent. Now, going into the stats a little bit here, I'm rocking 105 grenade stat and 150 weapon stat with at least 60 super, and then class after that, and then I would prioritize melee, and then health just does not matter at all. The reason I'm rocking my stats this way, I'm able to hit 100 grenade and 100 weapons without having to worry too much about anything else by using primarily gunner gear or grenadier gear. The reason for me doing this and then going to 150 weapons instead is I have a Festival Flight with Blast Distributor. If you do not have a Blast Distributor that you can apply easily, like with this area denial from here, I can apply Blast Distributor times 5. That's up to 65 grenade stat, though it should be 55 according to what it says, but for some reason it's giving 65. This should put me up to 160 grenade stat if I hit all 5, which sometimes I just do 4, which is why I'm still at 105 instead of 95. But this should get me up to 200 with my double grenade font. Now, if you do not have that, I recommend instead trying to stick to about 100 weapons and then chucking up your grenade to 150 using whatever mods or anything you need to use. Speaking of the weapons, some situations in which you might want to not use your Festival Flight and instead invest more into your grenade stat is if there's an anti-barrier going on, because then Mint Retrograde is going to be your best friend in this slot. That is just my personal opinion though. It's just an extremely solid weapon right now. And then for the heavy, I'm going to recommend that if you're not in Avant-Garde, you use something like a Dragon's Breath for the extra explosions. It's good against Unstop, and it also is a pretty low maintenance weapon because it reloads itself and then improves damage on that self reload. And then also if you're running with friends, you could use a Galahorn if they're also using rockets. This is a nice little thing to do. Wolfpack rounds is a good support tool. But if you are an Avant-Garde, or if you just want something a bit more nutty, then you could try to go for an Outrageous Fortune. If you have a roll with bait and switch, I've got Blast Distributor bait and switch, but you probably want something that's more of a reload perk in the left column. I just don't have one because I don't have many rolls of this gun. This will be the best option in this slot that is non-exotic, in which case you can either choose to run no exotic, or you can try and run a different energy weapon here. For the armor mods, here they are, but to show you a bit more in depth, on the helmet, we're going with a Solar Strand Dual Siphon, Ashes to Assets, and then a Harmonic Siphon for some extra solar there. On the gauntlets, we're going with 2 grenade fonts and a bolstering detonation. I'm using an old Starfire Protocol roll, so I have an Artifice mod here, but you really don't need it, especially if you have a good rolled current roll with charged up sniper resistance and harmonic resistance. On the boots, I'm rocking a Solar Weapon Surge and stacks on stacks with an Innervation leg armor mod. And on the bond, I'm using a class font for some class stat, a Reaper mod so that whenever we use our class ability, our next white weapon Final Blow will spawn an Orb of Power, and Powerful Attraction so that whenever we do use our class ability, in this case in most content Phoenix Dive, we are going to immediately absorb all of the orbs around us, which is very nice, especially if your teammates are happening to make orbs or you are making a lot of orbs. This is particularly good with that attrition orbs roll because you're going to constantly be doing it. Now, the general gameplay loop you're going to want to do with this build is take your Festival Flight, you're going to apply all of your Blast Distributor stacks that you can, This can be done on a single target. It can be done on a large group of ads. It will be best on a large group of ads if you have one for all, but if you don't, then so be it. You're mostly using it for Blast Distributor anyway. And then on top of that, you're going in with the Eartide Apex. You can do a significant amount of damage if you are running the Burning Ambition, purely because the extra Scorch, the extra Ignition, it does add up, and it seems to ramp up faster on already scorched targets. And then drop in some Dragon's Breath or some outrageous Fortune in between whenever you can. So keep that in mind. Either way, if you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to like, subscribe, tell me what kind of things you'd want to see in the comments below. If you want to support the channel, I have a Patreon linked in the description, and I have an advanced.dg code, STIXHERE10 for 10% off. Thanks for watching.